Hello everyone, so this is the discussing Dark Dynamism Part 2, so discussing my book that I published last week. It's called Dark Dynamism. It's a book about how to shrink a sad blue city into a happy startup village using drones, dark factories, and deurbanization. In the first part of my series of lectures, I don't know, just talking to myself here, in the evening, being a bit tired as always. So the second part, I want to continue. I stopped. We got kind of interrupted, and I lost track of what I was talking about before, right? But I was talking about Scott Bessent actually praising Singapore on All In podcast. And he basically praised Singapore and Singaporean officials who they consulted with, I think from Temasek, from their sovereign wealth fund, and the U.S. officials they consulted with them regarding setting up their own sovereign wealth fund, the U.S. sovereign wealth fund that the Trump wants to set up, and include all various assets there. So and so dark dynamism, right? So the thesis of my book is some kind of like not bottom up, not top down, but kind of a center out strategy of developing these special innovation zones. And my thesis is basically that Fukuyama was right, that the end of history happened, but Denmark has lost and Dubai has won, or Singapore has won and South Africa has lost, or Dems have lost and Deng has won. So Deng Xiaoping has won because he took inspiration from Singapore. He transformed China into a kind of turbo-capitalistic country with BYD kind of winning share over in EVs and many companies. Basically, the Western world, or better say, or the US has very few people like Elon, and actually Elon is really competitive. There are not that many people in hardware and in like this kind of like hardware is hard, right? So Elon is competitive to China, but they are catching up in many sectors. So the the thesis of dark dynamism is actually that the US and BRICS will not diverge, but they will, after a kind of a detour after Trump 1.0, kind of fighting China, I think now we will see some reapproachment, realignment actually with the BRICS, more generally with India, China, and other countries, and kind of they're joint investing in special innovation zones all around the world. So like the Gaza talk, the Trump discussing Gaza, kind of transforming Gaza into some kind of like a special economic zone, or some kind of like a metropolis, I don't know, some free, much freer, much more developed place. It's interesting. Actually, just saw like Palmer Luckey wrote for Pirate Wires a piece where he discusses Guantanamo Bay to be expanded in some kind of Liberty City. And this is in line with Dark Dynamism I, using drones, dark factories, and deurbanization. And actually, to build startup villages, and with these startup villages we could shrink sad blue cities, or actually we could expand successful kibbutzim into a startup villages. So you could think about it from the libertarian perspective, but also from a leftist perspective, as scaling some successful communities. But unlike actually libertarians and leftists, like these kind of um, more decentralized folks, anarcho-capitalists and anarchists, let's say. I agree with Balaji and with people like Balaji that actually you need some kind of founder, right? Like the Singapore was founded by Lee Kuan Yew. The modern China was founded by Deng Xiaoping, we could argue, right? And so the modern US and the Western world more broadly was founded by people like FDR. And these people actually created oligarchy that we live under today, and they created many small monarchs, right? Like the problem with oligarchy, Curtis Yarvin says, it produces lots of small monarchs, like Anthony Fauci, right? People who are in power and control quite a large budgets, bigger than actually billionaires, as Balaji rightly says that a billionaire is maybe $100 million liquid over his whole life. But these like political billionaires, they can spend like billions or tens of billions every year. So, so it's a different order of magnitude altogether. So, and these small monarchs, it was also discussed in the book, but the Balaji talks about it a lot. If you Google ACT UP, it's a movement in the 90s. I mean, kind of maybe from the 80s, but like they were protesting Dr. Fauci in the 1990, I think, or 1991. I don't know. Just like, but you just Google it, ACT UP, okay? And if you watch Dallas Buyers Club, that also Balaji talks about the great movie, you could see like why they were protesting Dr. Fauci back, yeah, I don't know, some what was it, more than 30 years ago, right? Like, so 30 years after that COVID happened and people were again protesting. I don't know, the Canadian truckers were debanked, threatened with all kind of crazy stuff. Crypto companies were debanked, right? So, but okay, going back to Singapore and Scott Bessent. So Scott Bessent said like Trump's America and Singapore are quite similar in three aspects. They're kind of against illegal immigration. They are for small government, and they are for public safety, right? So yeah, it's true. Yeah, I mean, broadly speaking, I agree. I mean, we could reframe it as being pro business, being pro merit, and being pro tech, right? Like pro merit, pro business, pro tech, and yeah, somewhere safe public safety should be there somewhere as well. But maybe it's a byproduct of just like uh, not letting anyone in. Mm, yeah, pro tech, pro business, pro merit, pro freedom, but also pro safety. So yeah, it's just like you could actually push Pareto optimum in all these. You can push the Pareto frontier, sorry, in all these directions. It's like yeah. It's possible. So yeah, I mean, so basically Denmark has lost meaning. Like getting to Denmark, it's like the Fukuyama-esque vision of the end of history, where you have the effective fusion between social democracy, like the European, Scandinavian kind of type of social democracy, plus some globally competitive commerce, like think Maersk, like the shipping container company, think Lego, think Noma as the like once the best restaurant. But I argue getting to Dubai is the dream that the counter elites and elites have today. So Dubai, right? So Dubai chocolate is all the craze today, and actually Noma is kind of, I don't know, playing with some herbs every year, and they're threatening to close the operation for like a couple of years. So I mean, Denmark is not a basket case, right? Like, but the problem with the Blue Tribe, like, they were all about this, like, getting to Denmark, about like governance, good governance, whatever. But over the last 10 years, I mean, if you look at San Francisco, California, the the kind of spiritual Brusselification of California, and the regulatory Brusselification of California, right? Like, so you get like the worst of both worlds. You get like anarch tyranny, and it's basically more not about getting to Denmark, but about getting to Venezuela, right? Like, so one way or the other. So that's like the Blue Tribe kind of pivoted from getting to Denmark into getting to Venezuela, which is sad. And the Red Tribe, I argue, will pivot into getting to Dubai, right? So in places like Singapore and Dubai, they will become commodified, meaning it's just people will think that this is actually normal. It's actually you deserve to walk at night and feel safe, and yeah, just feel safe. I mean, it's just like, I don't know. Yeah, I mean, it's normal. People experience this in China, and yeah, even in here in my country, Slovakia, it's not that bad, but it could be much better anywhere, everywhere, right? So, public safety is like like we've seen the transformation of El Salvador under Bukele, and actually, I mean, if you can't send your kids outside to play or to walk to school, and you have to be afraid all the time, it's like a really bad tax on your health, on your mental health, on and actually it's also a big tax on you, because I don't know, in places like San Francisco, I mean, in Western Europe, your car can get burned, can get stolen, can get broken into. So yeah, I mean, okay, so getting to Dubai, and so I argue when this getting to Dubai or Singapore, it becomes like commodified, and many more places will accept it. And actually, the Blue Tribe, I argue, it's like a Wagami world, like we all gonna make it world, where BRICS will make it, the US will make it, almost everyone will make it. Maybe the EU will not make it, and NGMI, if they don't pivot, or they will be the last to make it. But even there, with the EU, which I consider as the maybe the enemy number one of today's Trump 2.0 America. Not, it's actually not China, but it might be actually the EU. So I think like the Blue Tribe more or less will pivot into getting to a startup city, or getting to a place like a Dubai, Singapore, and it will be kind of normal. It's like what the tech counter elites are doing today. The normies will do. Yeah, soon. So yeah, and people like Noah Smith and these kind of guys are some kind of smart Democrats, right? Like they have different sensibilities from the MAGA folks, but they're like YIMBY guys. They like to build, they like technology, they like Elon Musk. So I think the Blue Tribe, they will sooner or later. I mean, they will pivot into, they love power, right? So they love this kind of mimesis. They love people. They love things that are popular, right? So and that work. So I think sooner or later they will just like realize that places like Singapore are actually this effective synthesis between, I don't know, social democracy, capitalism, turbo capitalism. Yeah, I mean, there are sui generis, but like I guess you have places like Dubai, and actually many places like, that have sizable Muslim populations are actually really safe, right? Like, I mean, yeah, so yeah, like places like Singapore, places like United Arab Emirates. Yeah, if you Google Gallup poll 10 safest places, you see actually many such places where people feel safe, right? I guess Kuwait could be there. I don't know. Yeah, not that many Western places though. Interestingly, still some, right? But it's inequality is dynamic, and we live in a, either you live in a ascending world or a descending, declining world, and it's a it's fractal. So you could have declining or ascending places within the U.S. Or within the Western world. Right. So what I argue in the dark dynamism is that the next frontier for counter elites is actually getting to a startup village, right? So the startup city, let's say like Dubai, Singapore, or maybe Miami. You know, like people moved from San Francisco to Miami during COVID. Some communities or culture subcultures like crypto, right? Once these places become kind of commodified, standardized, or like more mainstream, they are pretty mainstream, right, already, but once they become more mainstream, the next frontier for counter elites will be startup villages. So basically, like Balaji is building a startup school, and you could think about like dark dynamism as something between charter schools and charter cities. So it could be like something like startup village or a small town, you know. And also, I try to kind of frame it as a not just like libertarian or techno optimistic. Yeah, definitely only techno optimistic, right? And only techno progressive, or how you want to say it, vision, right? So there is no compromise there, but you could have like you could compromise on different axes. So you could actually be kind of pretty egalitarian and focused on equality, uh, and you could actually think about like technology as a way how to make various ideologies viable or scalable. So with dark dynamism, the DDD of drones, dark factories, and deurbanization, we could shrink sad blue cities into happy startup villages, because AI, social, and crypto technologies, they all can shrink collectives, big collectives, complex economies into smaller collectives, because you don't need with the dark factories, various like vertical farms, various fab labs, etc. You, and especially with AI startups, they require much less people, right? Like so, less workers, but also less paper pushing, less of this paper belt kind of jobs where people are just shuffling papers all around. I mean, maybe Graeber talked about bullshit jobs, right? So like this kind of bullshit jobs. Well, I think it's not really bullshit jobs because you don't get hurt, right? So people kind of are lazy. Even this censorship, this whole censorship industrial complex. You could think about like laptop class support program is like yes, basically this leisure class, or not leisure class, okay, laptop class, like people who just like love to work on being at home, doing their work during home office. And so even like police policing the internet, you can think about like you can have a warm cup of coffee and just like police the internet instead of walking in the rain on the streets chasing real criminals. But you could be like, oh, this grandma used some strange language here, or like the grandma is sharing some misinformation, let's punish her. Or like she didn't update her language to the last woke trend or whatever. Let's punish some grandma or some grandpa. So as a police, this is much more comfortable, right, to do this kind of like enforcing hate crimes. I mean hate speech crimes. enforcing hate speech crimes is much easier than like actual policing, chasing actual dangerous criminals. So right, so that's like the laptop class jobs program. So it's like a sheltered workshop for laptop class, right? So that's like the blue tribe, right? You have various consultants, ESG consultants. I like it. They have all these holy wars, like the blue tribe, like I don't know, war against climate change, war against this and that, war against prejudice, and I don't know, war against yeah, all kind of wars, like and and these wars are building like these industries of consultants. And I mean, okay, it's a different type of maybe systemic corruption or systemic this and that. They are doing maybe with the DEI, they are making like the systemic racism. Actually, it's like projection. They are often what do they accuse others of, right? These blue guys, blue tribe. But but okay. But I think they will pivot. They will pivot, and they will also what we think it's like counter elite today, like I don't know, this techno optimism, Dubai, Singapore. I think that's where soon the blue tribe will pivot into. And so the next frontier is something like yes, something between charter cities and charter schools and charter cities, right? So charter communities, but like okay, let's be more concrete. So charter startup villages or smaller towns. The key is not to I mean, it's just maybe a minor distinction, but like just to add my 2 cents on and with my book Dark Dynamism, definitely it's like the big inspiration here is Balaji Srinivasan with the network state and Alexander Bard with his work from netocrats to syntheism, dark libido. I mean, it's just digital libido. Sorry. So yeah, I mean, his various books and discussions online. So, but my 2 cents where I differ from actually both of them, from Balaji and Bard. Uh, yeah, it's like I think actually the realignment between BRICS and the US is actually it's quite likely. It's possible. It's like not the end of globalization, but I think it will be the acceleration of globalization, which is a counterintuitive and maybe I don't know if it's controversial, but it's like definitely it's counter the narrative today. And also I think like places like okay, if you start the network state, or I mean in places like Tokyo, or you could think about something like the School of Life or something, like if you start with these, like I mean it's always easier to start from the top, right? Like from the top of the market, it's easier, and then go down, because it's also Curtis Yarren talks about it a lot. That at the if you build some service or some community, some platform, some network, social network actually, that at the beginning the social network will be the most quality will be at the beginning, because I don't know, think about like Facebook starting at Harvard, right? Like the quality of people there probably are, I mean, in terms of their family background and their future potential, was quite concentrated at the beginning when they were launching in Harvard campus or something, and now it's like oh, these birds all around the world. So I understand like starting from the top, starting from these like big cities, and like it's possible, and it's maybe it's preferable as well, but I think there's still this kind of mimetic competition in cities. And also with my book, I'm kind of a bit more radical. Like I talk about the deurbanization as the need. I mean, Balaji talks about HIMBY, like a horizontal, yes, in my backyard kind of movement. Like, so he's pretty much also into this, like building mm, on a green field, like building new towns. And he actually coined, or I heard him talk about the startup villages. So it's his term, not mine. But I think I want to stress like this kind of talk about like vertical dimension. So it's not just horizontal decentralization. Let's say having various communities in various cities and building these startup societies, network unions, network archipelagos, and network states. Eventually, that will get some kind of diplomatic recognition. But I talk about vertical dimension, meaning like, okay, drones, it's all AI and it's all kind of AI, but it's also robots and drones. Basically, drones are flying above us, right? So it's vertical, but also you could have automated some mines. You could have like robots working in some mines or dark factories that actually could be put also underground because they don't require any light. So that's the name, dark factories, right? You could have actually robots mining asteroids, or you could have like orbital manufacturing like Varda. Right, so this is the vertical dimension with drones and dark factories, but also like deurbanization aims to reverse the depopulation trend, so to improve the fertility rates. And it's also kind of like a vertical dimension because in Asia you have this strong tradition of worshipping your ancestors, right? So like the vertical lineage kind of thing. So you want to preserve it with future offspring. And I argue that moving out of big cities is probably healthy for repopulating the planet. It's probably also like why Africa is still has this quite high fertility rates, because it's the least urbanized place. Yeah, I mean, if I'm correct, right? It's just like you can ask ChatGPT, but right, I mean, it's still kind of less urbanized, and it has big. I mean, so definitely there is some correlation there, and it kind of makes sense, right? Like, I mean, if you live in some cheaper place, you could have a bigger house, bigger car, but you also need China for that, right? As a manufacturing superpower. So I think at the end, this could work. This could be like this anti-mimetic, therefore, force of like building these special innovation zones. It's like a next stage after startups, startup hubs, startup accelerators, incubators, startup schools. You have something between charter schools and charter cities. Yeah, charter communities, charter villages, let's say. So startup villages, as Balaji calls them. And so, okay, I wanted to discuss something else. Euro decentrism. That was the beginning why I think that Denmark has lost and Dubai has won. So I think the Europe uh, will be hit the hardest probably with all these changes, because they will be the last to change and to reform. But I argue that there is a silver lining, because Europe is actually on very similar time zones than Africa. So using Balaji's idea of longitudinal arbitrage, I think Afro-European dynamism will happen. And this is like maybe the only chance for Europe, right? Because Europe is the place where this arrogant kind of blue tribe people will retrench. Yeah, I mean, because they think they're better than everyone, but they will suffer and they will become more authoritarian, like as JT Vance talked in Munich, right? So, but our hope here in Europe, I think, is Africa, because we are very close to Africa on a time zone, right? Because just like Norway and Nigeria are on the same time zone. So many places in Europe and Africa are connected like this so the longitudinal arbitrage is here, and it will be closed one day, right? So there's with high-speed internet, with robotics, with telepresence, this is how the Europe will be saved. So okay, maybe later I will discuss like Euro decentrism in the next discussion. I wanted to talk about BYD, and like BYD has won, BMW has lost. Oh, maybe not yet, but it's like that's the trend. Like the Volvo, it's owned by Geely, it's a Chinese company. So Volvo is produced in the US. The Chinese are owning the company, similar to Jaguar. Land Rover is owned by Tata, the Indian conglomerate. But the brand still, like the Volvo, this Swedish brand, still has this kind of like aura, right? Like the Europeans. Interesting, like Scott Bessent also talked about how America in, I think, the last summer, the most Americans vacationed in Europe ever, and also the most Americans used food banks ever, in the last summer in 2024. So that's like a real division in the US, and I think it's not just techno optimism that can save, or decrease this kind of inequality, decrease this kind of, close this gap, and revitalize the middle class, the working class. It's actually also China, right? That makes things cheaper. It's like the TV price curve that Mark Andreessen talks about. Yeah, those TVs are produced somewhere, right? Probably in China or Taiwan. Yeah, and the purpose of techno optimism, accelerationism, should be to put as many industries on the TV price curve, right? So the TVs are just getting cheaper, but education, healthcare, and everything that the blue tribe touches with their DEI and ESG and whatever, just skyrockets in price. So yeah, we need to put as many industries as possible on the TV price curve, just like drop the price, and actually China can help with that, right? So it's not just the US, and more broadly BRICS can help with that. Okay, so India as some kind of like the next economic miracle after China, probably, and Africa definitely, but China could help as well. So I think this realignment will happen, and it's like the BRICS and plus the US plus the internet versus the EU. Maybe the EU will, but the EU again will sooner or later they will be saved by Africa, which is counterintuitive probably. So Afro-European dynamism will happen as well. So okay, this is Dark Dynamism, discussing Dark Dynamism part 2. Just keeping the fire burning. So go to countryside to build a country. Let's shrink sad blue cities into happy startup villages with the Dark Dynamism and the DDD of drones, dark factories, and deurbanization. Thank you. You can download my book for free, which is like on my Twitter, Jakub Šimek. In my pinned tweet there are links like to SlideShare, to Google Docs. You can download it as a PDF, but also you can buy it on Kindle. I think for 3.30 $3.33. So yeah, uh, Dark Dynamism, we all gonna make it. WAGMI World, and Eurodecentrism, the opposite of Eurocentrism. I wanted to discuss, but I didn't get into it that much, so maybe later, maybe next time. Fail again, fail better, as Zizek says. Take care, bye.